We have a shocking Raptors update as the Toronto Raptors are now the favorites to land Joel Embiid in a trade this offseason. We know Masai Ujiri is always ready to take big swings. The Raptors do have a package, do have the contracts to put together a reasonable offer to the Philadelphia 76ers, but of course, Daryl Morey, we know how stubborn he is in these trade negotiations, and with Joel Embiid's recent injury updates, what he's been dealing with this entire season, we have a lot of concerns in regards to Joel Embiid coming to the Toronto Raptors, but regardless, this would be a game-changing move. This would, positive or negative, completely flip the script on how this Toronto Raptors team the next 5 years are going to look for this organization. So we're going to break down what's going on with all these trade reports, updates, why the Raptors are the favorites in this situation, and whether or not it makes sense for the Raptors to pursue this move. So lots of stuff to dive into in this video, but folks, we are trying to hit that goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the season. Of course, we're marching along, so if we can get 25 subs in this video, that'd be pretty good. A nice step forward as we continue to, build up this Raptors Digest community. So frankly, we are entering a very exciting era of Toronto Raptors basketball, regardless if this move happens or not. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. It's free. But let's dive into it, because frankly, I was shocked to see this last night, this pop up on my screen, as essentially, if he's not with the Sixers next season, the Toronto Raptors are favorites to land Joel Embiid per Bovado official. And it's, again, the odds aren't super guaranteed. It's not super high in terms of the likelihoods of what's happening. But the Raptors are number one, and by a significant enough margin to make it very, very interesting. So this is pretty wild. It's coming out, and the reason, because of course Joel Embiid is a guy that we like to meme on as Toronto Raptors fans. He's a part of our rival. We faced him in the playoffs multiple times. There's been some heated moments in Raptors history against Joel Embiid. That's no shock. That's no surprise. That's no revelation to anyone. But the reason why he is even being brought up in trade discussions is because of recent, firstly his performance this season, but also recent reports that have come out on his injury status. So we'll break down some of those before we jump into this. So the Sixers and Joel Embiid are consulting doctors and considering alternative options on his injured knee, sources have told ESPN. Sides have hope for progress in Embiid's body, but his efforts to play and current treatments, including injections, have not provided any improvement. So he's dealing with some stuff there right now. And then the Philadelphia Inquirer came out and said that the same Sixer who made orbital bone fracture and navicular bone fracture common phrases in the Philadelphia sports lexicon, he has two of each. He might soon add another one of these: meniscus replacement, low-dose radiation therapy, or even ominous sounding an osteotomy. An osteotomy, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but in which doctors break the bone in your hip to realign a joint to alleviate pressure. One source called the procedures very radical in the light of a mundane injury and surgery that brought Joel Embiid to this point. For some reason, what should have been a routine rehab and routine return to play has gone horribly wrong. So there is a lot of craziness going on with Joel Embiid's injury situation over the course of his career. He's dealt with injuries all the time. So you might look at this and be like, hey, why on earth would the Toronto Raptors want to trade for damaged goods? Even his stats this season aren't that eye-popping, aren't that overwhelming to say, hey, you still got to take a risk on this. 24 points per game, not horrible by any means, 24 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, under 30% from the three-point line, and, he's a guy that is, he's still Joel Embiid, but it's not that encouraging. So you might be looking at this, Ben, if we make this trade, that would be absolutely absurd. And frankly, I'd lean into that sentiment. I'd lean into that direction that a lot of people have kind of discussed, that have kind of brought up. But we do have to factor this in. Joel Embiid just, a season ago, averaged 34 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 5.6 assists. That was his stat line just a season ago. Now, of course, 39 games played last season, so that is one thing to be discouraged by. Of course, 19 games so far this year as well. Not the greatest, and frankly, even in his best seasons, 64 games. 51, 51, 68, 66. I mean, it's not that, his injury history, he has been dealing with some serious issues his entire career. So, even though the stats are ridiculous, even though the stats are crazy, it's the injury concerns are just a reality. But frankly, that's baked into the price when you're looking at the trade talks, the trade negotiations that are going down here right now. And frankly, given the fact he just was extended, he's on a pretty significant long-term contract, there is some serious, questions about his value out there in the NBA here now at this point. So it's a guy that you essentially, if you're Masai Ujiri, you're making this move. You're making this kind of decision. You're saying, okay, this is a buy low opportunity. Then we have 3-4 years where we could maybe rehab his value with the Raptors having one of the best, training staffs in the entire NBA. We don't do what we did with Kawhi. Don't expect him to play every single game. Do the rest of back-to-backs. Do all that stuff. And then hope that you keep him healthy for the playoffs. And then with your new rebuilt squad, then really go in that direction. But what on earth would we have to give up? Because that's the big question. A guy that has MVP caliber status. He has that MVP capabilities. We know this. But you don't want to give up something when the injury situation is as bad as it is. You don't want to give up too much to where you're mortgaging your entire future. So, given his contract situation, it's tough to make a move work. The one that I saw just be kind of, this one is not the one that I saw. This one is one I've been seeing thrown around a little bit. I have been adamant. I have been outspoken. I do not want to trade RJ Barrett under any not under any circumstances. Luka Doncic pops up on the market again. Sorry, RJ, you're getting kicked out, but that is what it is. But regardless, for a guy that's as injury prone, as injury risk as Joel Embiid, I'm not that sold on it. I mean, we can take a look at RJ Barrett's stat this season: 22 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 5.6 assists. 24 years old, hasn't dealt with many injury issues. Knock on wood that stays the same. But in comparison to Joel Embiid's stats, it's not that crazy. But of course, Joel Embiid, obviously healthy, is a much better player than RJ Barrett. But I'm just not that with the injury risk baked in, that's sold on one of these types of moves. And even the second one that's being brought up, it's not something I'm super sold on either. IQ and Jakob Poeltl in a trade for Joel Embiid. Now, of course, you have to send something of value back. So IQ, RJ, these are the names that are getting thrown around. Jakob Poeltl does become redundant if you have a Joel Embiid on your roster that can actually play games. Of course, the Raptors would need an elite backup center because they're going to have to play a ton of games while Embiid is out of the lineup. But I don't know. Immanuel Quickley's contract is more expensive than RJ Barrett's. He's had more injuries. He's had a little bit more concerns. I know it's almost like selling low on Immanuel Quickley there as well. But these are deals, again, I'm not super sold on, but they are, things that you could take a look at and be like, okay, this is interesting enough for the Toronto Raptors to factor in. Of course, if one of these moves ended up going down, it would suck to lose Jakob Poeltl, who's been great for the Raptors this season. 14 points per game, 10 rebounds. Again, has dealt with injuries in his own right, but nothing near to the extent of what Joel Embiid's doing. Defensively, he's more mobile. Jakob Poeltl would be a tough loss in one of these circumstances, but you are making this move if you believe the rest of the Raptors core is ready to compete for a championship, because that window of Joel Embiid is closing quickly. Now, with Brandon Ingram, with Scottie Barnes, with a potential top draft pick in this year's NBA draft, there are a lot of interesting sort of positions, directions that this team could go down and make this team competitive. So that's all that, that's going on at this point. And the Sixers, they might be desperate enough to take on, contracts, take on something that isn't that, you'd be surprised if you saw it just out there on the open market in terms of, different moves that are ongoing. Like, if we take a look at what the Sixers, the positioning out there for these guys, the NBA, they're the sixth worst team in the NBA. The Raptors are the fifth worst team. The Sixers made a big signing for Paul George last season. That's they're a team that's not supposed to be in the position that they are. So, we'll see how desperate they are. We'll see what the Raptors are able to do. I'm actually going to go live on this with Sean Bernard from Sixers Digest out here in in a video live stream later tonight. So keep your eyes out for that. Subscribe so you don't miss everything that's going on with this team. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.